This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.
Hi, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell. Thank you for joining us for this mini distraction. Like our full-length show, these minis will be different every time, only shorter. It's a busy world, and you don't have a lot of time. We get it. These episodes are for you. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how do you deal with difficult people. One of the most difficult distractions to deal with in life is difficult people. Now, if you can, you want to simply avoid them. So that's a no-brainer. You know, how do you deal with difficult people? You don't. You stay away from them. But sometimes you're placed in a situation where you have to deal with them. If your boss is difficult, if you have a relative who you spend time with at holidays who's difficult, if there's one of your neighbors is difficult, a colleague is difficult. We often find ourselves in situations where we have to deal with these people, and avoidance alone won't do the trick. The best thing to do is to look at the role you're playing in it. How could I behave differently, instead of wishing the other person would change. You're wishing that other person would change and entertaining fantasies of revenge may be fun, but it's not going to be productive. Wishing the other person would change ain't going to happen. However, you can change. So you can change your behavior around that person and try to notice what do you do that makes this person difficult. If it's simply that you exist, well, then you do want to keep your distance from that person. But oftentimes there are little buttons you push without meaning to. If you have any kind of trust with the person, you could say, it would be a lot better if we could get along better. Can you tell me what I could do differently that would make us get along better? Instead of saying to the person, I wish you wouldn't do X, Y, or Z, if you could say to that person, how would you like me to change? What could I do that would make me less difficult? So you flip it and you say, I'm playing a role in this. And then you ask that person, what could I do differently? That stands a much better chance of succeeding. The guy or the woman will be amazed that you asked. And in and of itself will improve your relationship because they can see that you're working on it. And then you can make some progress. If you're afraid to talk to the other person, and this often happens, see if there's another person you could brainstorm with, a colleague, a supervisor, somebody else, the toxic boss sort of thing. And not in a gossipy way, but in a constructive way. What could we do here that would allow us to engage this person in dialogue? And instead of simply living with it and putting up with it, have discussions with others who have to deal with this person and come up with a game plan. How can we manage him or her in a different way? Or, best of all, find someone who gets along with them and send that person in, because usually difficult people aren't difficult with absolutely everyone. They have places where they can be reasonable. Early in my training, I was a research assistant before I went to medical school with a absolutely impossible professor of surgery at the Harvard Medical School. And he was more than difficult. He was impossible. He was demanding. He was curt. He was peremptory. He would ridicule. He'd fly off the handle. He demanded work from us as if we were, just the peon of the peons. And I began by really resenting him, if not downright hating him. But I needed the job, so I couldn't just quit. And so what I began to do is simply, when he was around, I would engage him in conversation, and I would show him that I wanted to learn from him because he was a brilliant, brilliant man. And I'd take his guff, because I had to. But I wouldn't pout and sulk and entertain fantasies of revenge. I would hang in there. And the next thing you know, it took some time, but I could tell he liked me. And guess what? I started to like him. Abraham Lincoln nailed it when he said, "I have destroyed my enemies by turning them into my friends." And that's what I did with this professor. And it's what he did with me. I was never his enemy, but I'm sure I was a pain in the neck. And by the end of that year, as I headed off to medical school, he was my friend. And to this day, he remains my friend. That's it. If you have an issue, a question, or a suggestion, email at connect@distractionpodcast.com or go to our website at distractionpodcast.com. To hear more mini and full-length episodes, subscribe to Distraction on iTunes. And thanks so much for listening.
The episode you just heard was made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.